Welcome to the Rich and Rob Show, everybody. I'm Rob. And I'm Rich. What have we got on tap today, Rob? We got Dr. Phil. I don't know when this was done, but it would be recently. He's got a guy on there who's talking about the nature of the protesters. Now, I'm assuming that this is about the Palestinian Gaza thing going on over there with Israel. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's the nature of all protesters. Probably Soros or some other douchebag is behind this. I can't stand him. I can't stand them. They just agitate. All right, let's see what he's got to say. This gentleman that Dr. Phil evidently has on his show.
What I did as an independent journalist was to go out with my mobile camera to record what was happening at some of these so-called direct actions and protests.
Andy Ngo, who, as I just mentioned, Winston was canceled just for linking to his book. Andy Ngo has been on the forefront of trying to expose what has been going on between Antifa and BLM and the Democrats and all of these things as a movement really to upend America itself. I don't think anyone has done a better job at it. He has paid the price. He has been attacked repeatedly. He had death threats. He has had to move repeatedly. There are things that are not public that the guy has gone through. Anyway, he went on Dr. Phil's show and talked a bit about that.
This has gotten really personal with you. Antifa has actually tried to kill you on 2 different occasions. What are you saying is so threatening to them?
So I tried through my journalism to inform the public about the threat of violent far-left extremism in the United States. We know very much about the violent far right, but when it comes to the other side, there's actually a vacuum that exists. So what I did as an independent journalist was to go out with my mobile camera to record what was happening at some of these so-called direct actions and protests, which were branded around things that sounded really wonderful. Social justice, racial justice, Black Lives Matter. But the people behind it were actually espousing an ideology of violent revolution, a destruction of America, destruction of the rule of law. In 2020, they exploited the death of George Floyd to carry out acts of violence across the United States. This wasn't to the benefit of any Black communities. Instead, what we saw were Black businesses, homes, neighborhoods torched to the ground. 4 years later, many of these same strategies and tactics are now being used again at some of these university encampments.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the university encampments in just a second. I have to say, I've mentioned this once or twice on the show before, but years and years ago, this is around 2017, when I was, quote, leaving the left, I did an event at Portland State University with Pete Boghossian, who you've seen on this show, and Christina Hoff Sommers. And we did an event there, and Andy Ngo was a student at the time at Portland State. And it was the first time that I ever did an event where there were mass protests, and they were saying that I was a homophobe, and Pete Boghossian was a misogynist, and Christina Hoff Sommers hates women, or something like, who the hell, or Pete was the white supremacist, and she was the misogynist. None of it made sense. But they tried to stop us. We had to have a police escort. They were pulling fire alarms, all of those things. And Andy was just a young student at the time, and I think it's important to note, because I'm so proud of the work that he's done over the past 8 or so years, and he has definitely paid the price for it. But he has been warning, as someone that went to a far-left university in Portland, Oregon, right, like the bastion of this craziness, that all of these kids were being taught by, in essence, Marxists and communists, being taught all of the wrong things, taught how horrible America is, told that they need trigger warnings and all of the rest of the nonsense, right? Safe spaces and everything else. And they are the ones who not only burned down parts of the country in 2020, but they are the ones right now who are calling for genocide and the rest of it on our college campuses.
That's so true, because the habit is there, the president is there, the precedent is there, that you could get away with almost anything. Just make a big enough stink and people think that you're on the right side of things. Well, I can't stand it. And those trigger warnings, those things trigger me. But they don't trigger me in a small way. I can't stand those frickin' things. Trigger warning, are you kidding me? Are you so weak you need to be warned? Oh, you're about to hear something that you might not like to hear. I can't even believe where we've gotten to. And the violence on the campuses, the university presidents have just backed down. They won't empower law enforcement to go do their jobs. So now, this thing with Israel, people are just becoming these emotional train wrecks out there. making noise, but it's like they're modeling themselves after the Middle East. If something goes wrong in the Middle East, there are these people rioting in the streets and everybody goes haywire. That's right. I've been noticing the same thing too. And I worry about that a little bit. I'm not a big worrier, but I see that like the way argumentation and deliberation and protests are being taken place over here in the States, now it's like starting to get closer and closer to what goes on in the Middle East. And I always thought that was crazy. Let's talk about things, you know? Right, but as Andy Engau, or however his name is pronounced, has said, people don't want to do that. This is all about making a point, and there are people behind it funding it. And their agenda is being followed by these people who are like pawns on the ground, but they're violent pawns. They're assholes, to say the least. Well, all right, everybody. I'm glad Dr. Phil has some people on here. I think he's a righty. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he is, though. But in any case, he doesn't mind putting conservatives on his show or people who want to show like that the left has lost their mind. All right, everybody. Leave your comments, like, and subscribe if you would. It helps us along. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Rich and Rob Show. Ciao, everybody.